Shalom, family. Good to see you all here. Hope you're doing well. We're going to talk about something that occurred on CNN. Some of you may know Jillian Michaels. She's the fitness lady from back in the day, and her ass really need to stick with fitness and stop trying to dive into history because this woman absolutely don't know what she's talking about. But as usual, it's always the loudest one. It's always the wrong one. That's how it usually goes when these conversations happen. So she was pretty much aligning herself with Donald Trump. You know how Donald Trump and everything that he's doing, trying to say, "Oh, you're making black kids feel bad." No, we're not making white kids feel bad. We're not making no damn white kid feel bad. It's the adults that want it gone, y'all. These kids ain't running around out here saying that mess, but the adults are. And they're just shielding themselves behind their children. But at the end of the day, it's the adults that want the Black history gone. All right. They want it gone. And she does too. So her argument is you're blaming white people. Other people had slaves. Yeah, but it was you. It was you. And even if we look at the Indians that had slaves, who sold the slaves to the Indians? White people. Okay. So I don't know how you don't think you are the main character. Yeah, how do you not think you're the main character in the whole thing? Come on, man. So she's talking a bunch of nonsense. Y'all is going to give you a migraine, but do your best to sit through this, okay? Just do your best to sit through it. Yes, it's going to be nauseating. I'm trying to warn you now. And number 2, I don't know why CNN had her on. This woman ain't no expert in slavery or any of our history for that matter. I mean, if she's for fitness, then that's the only thing she should be on there for. As far as talking about slavery, this woman don't know the first thing about it. And as usual, they always put these types on. Now, she don't do the fitness thing so much anymore. She has her own podcast these days, and she is full MAGA. And see, that's why they never, if you notice, many of these celebrity types and athletes, that's why they don't like them out here talking about their political views, because when you find out what they're all about, you won't like them. You usually won't like them. So that's why they have all kinds of PR people around them to keep their mouth shut about a lot of things pertaining to racism, political views, or anything that's sort of like social justice issues, because 9 times out of 10, they're always on the wrong side of it. That's why they don't want you out here running your mouth. So let's get started, y'all. Shalom to everybody in the chat. Thank you, Iron Will, for your super chat. Let me see what that says before we go any further. Sorry about that. Hold on. We're all messed up here. Let's see if I can. This thing is like got a mind of its own today. All right. So anyway, let me put all right, Becky. When Becky is no longer desirable, they turn full Karen. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. I have to agree with you on that. They do turn full Karen. All right, y'all. It's nice that you have this kind of stuff in the chat. All right, let me share my screen because I just want you to see this. Right. Turn that off. Yep, here it is. Thank you, T Key, for your super sticker. All right, y'all, please give me a 1 if you can see my screen. Give me a 1 if you can see my screen. Yeah, she probably do. You know, she is a lesbian married to a woman. And usually, for some reason, these homosexuals and these lesbians always want Black children. When it comes time to adopt, you notice they never adopt their own children. They always want the melanated children. If it's not one of ours, it's some African child or some child from the Caribbean. But they damn sure make sure the child is not from their community. That's what they always do. So, all right, y'all, let's get started.
This has been an installation there. Is gender testing fair in sports? Does that, and then it goes on to talk about how it's complex to do gender testing in sports. It's not complex. It's basic science. That's untrue. It's XX chromosome, XY chromosome. That's sports. Is it fair to have biological men competing against biological women in sports? No. But why is this in the Smithsonian? So it's been completely captured.
First of all, I don't.
And it's totally partisan.
We don't. First of all, we don't have time to litigate all of this.
Of course we don't, because then you're going to lose the argument. If everything is racialized, just like you're trying to do to me now.
Excuse me.
It's like, I can't believe you're trying to suggest, that slavery
just to
is
be
a good
clear,
thing.
you brought up race.
No,
this was a conversation about the arts, and you brought up race.
It isn't.
You brought up.
But the whole point of this is that the issue
you brought up slavery, and you brought up the question of whether you brought up the question of whether or not slavery in the United States is about race. The answer is yes.
I did not say
in the United States
don't
is
straw man my
about
argument
race.
because that's not what I said.
So what are you
brought
talking
up
about?
Slavery, and what I was talking about is that this isn't really about that. When you make every single exhibit about white imperialism when it isn't relevant at all, that is a problem. So when you're talking about Cubans leaving Cuba and you make it about white people bad, that's not accurate.
Can I just say,
that's my point.
All right, we're going to move on. Let Trump touches.
As it relates to the BLS, by definition, he's right. The numbers we do get every month are fake because the methodology is so warped that they get changed later. So
that's exactly
they're
which
fake.
numbers do you have faith
Because
in?
they get changed
the numbers
later.
that are hundreds of thousands,
today's
the numbers that
number,
are
I don't remember you
19,000.
saying that back in April.
That is a crazy thing to say.
Every month they get changed.
You did not say that back in April when
That
Trump was praising these numbers.
That is an insane thing to say
nonsense.
because you
Do the
worked.
numbers change or
Scott,
not?
you worked in
It's
the.
okay.
It's a preliminary estimate that's revised.
That is
It's a revision.
Bush
That is
administration.
three times
Hold on a
larger.
second, Jillian. Scott, you worked in the Bush administration. The numbers that the BLS put out, which get revised every single month in the Bush administration, were those fake?
Well, I think the methodology back then worked better. I think it doesn't work very well now. And so my point is this: whether you agree with the word fake or not, they're not accurate.
You just made the claim that the fact that the numbers get revised mean that they're fake. Were they fake when you worked in the government?
Back in those days, I don't think the revisions were as substantial. Today, they're quite
There have
substantial.
always been revisions.
I don't think they were as substantial as they are
There
now.
have always been revisions.
I don't think they're as substantial as they are now.
Revisions vary. Sometimes they're small. Sometimes
Are you
they're
okay
large.
with the level of revisions?
Guess what?
They're
The
pretty
public
pretty
data,
off.
when you actually look at the public data, the revisions in the public data are actually way smaller than the revisions in the private data. So even though the Bureau of Labor Statistics transparently goes back and says, we have more information, here's what we know, you're making a political claim, and I know why you're doing it, but it's also one that I think is incredibly, but it's very corrosive, I think, to the idea of whether or not there's anything real in the world, right?
No,
just because there are corrections
I don't know
doesn't
why.
mean that it's fake.
We're not in disagreement.
We are in disagreement.
I'm saying
you just called it all fake.
the goal of this agency and the next administrator and of this administration ought to be to update and modernize the methodology so that the numbers we get each month are far more accurate.
So when they update the methodology and they continue to revise them because they have more information, which will happen, you're going to continue to call those numbers fake.
What exactly is the issue with the methodology?
Well, there is a belief that they're not able to do as much or as accurate data collection from private sector companies right now. They're not getting the response rates. Therefore,
That was an issue back in April. And I don't remember these objections back in April when Trump
Well,
was praising these numbers.
of course, when he gets the numbers and they look
Again,
good, it's going to look good to him. But it's probably highly agitating to find out later that you were handed fake numbers.
If there were a vast, if the
Scott,
BLS,
I think it's, listen, it's,
But this
but
is
if the Bureau of
it
Labor,
is silly to continue. I get the politics of it, but it is silly to continue to
It's
call
not political.
things that you don't like fake.
It's not that I like it or don't like it. I just like to be more accurate.
Your name is not Donald Trump.
I
And
just
you
want it to be
have
accurate.
but
Do
you have
not
the
want
ability
accurate data?
you have the ability to approach this in a way that is not needlessly inflammatory. It is
so do
not.
you.
It is not fake. Okay,
Abby,
it is not fake.
Abby,
are the
which set of
numbers that you're
aren't fake? The
are the
first
numbers that
ones
you're
or the second set of
bad job
numbers?
numbers, when presidents get bad job numbers, like Barack Obama did, when they get bad inflation numbers, like Joe Biden did,
The numbers,
they easily could have called it fake because they don't like the numbers. But it's a choice to do that.
Do you realize
and
that
it's a choice to say that revisions mean something that is
I don't know
fake.
why we're having a combative conversation. My point is the numbers we get at this moment in time seem to be less accurate than ever.
yes.
If the government updates
roughly
and does a better
300%.
job of
Again,
methodology and
Donald
data
Trump-
collection, then they'll be more
What I would say,
accurate.
Scott,
What
is
is
that
wrong with that?
I appreciate your revision of your comments.
I
Because
literally
what you
just said the same
because
thing.
what you just said is a fair thing to say. It is
been
a
my point for 2
rational,
nights in a row.
reasonable thing to say. And you did not use the word faked in that last part that you just said. So I just want to know that is a revision and I appreciate you doing
And let's
it.
be clear.
Thank you, Scott Jennings. Coming up next for
See where
us.
we are at the end of 30 days. How much progress have they made? And then Congressman can make an assessment at that point about whether this is working, and maybe it would help to extend it a little bit.
I guess I'm old enough, Scott, to remember when you were appalled, as the rest of us were, on January 6th, when he wouldn't.
Because
when he
January
wouldn't-
6th happened, should we
when-
not enforce the
when-
law today?
Excuse me.
Do you
when
want
he-
murders
Let me
today?
finish, Scott. I know you love
January
to-
6th
Scott, just
equals
let her finish.
no
Scott,
enforcement
I know
of
you
mercy.
hate talking about
This is a
no,
silly.
I
This
know
is a silly
it
argument.
is. No, let me finish before you make a point about a silly
Well, it'll
argument.
be silly, but go
What's
ahead.
what's silly is you sitting down with Mitch McConnell over Chick-fil-A and lamenting how Donald Trump was putting all of you, including Mitch McConnell, in harm's way. But I guess now you're so.
I wasn't in harm's way. I was in Louisville.
No, your then boss, your friend Mitch McConnell certainly was. But now
January 6th was a
now
bad
that-
day.
Can I finish?
Murders are also bad.
Can I finish?
I want
Can I
murders
finish?
solved.
Can I
Scott, can you
finish?
just let her finish?
Scott's gonna.
Well, if she wants to come out here and take pot shots at me, I'm not going to allow
Scott,
it.
I know
It's
you're
a
not-
stupid
Scott,
argument. I'm not going to allow
Scott,
it.
Scott, just let her finish.
I know you're-
I don't even know that we've even heard the argument.
No,
yet.
we heard it. We
No,
heard
no,
everything.
no,
that you were
Scott.
denying. So go ahead,
Scott, I
Julie.
know you're thirsty for that Senate seat, but let me finish. What I'm going to
Again,
say.
I mean, you
what
allow this every night.
Scott, just
You
give me
allow it
1
every day.
second here. Let's just let her finish, please.
Okay.
Just 1 second.
Listen, I know you've got the
And I
picky
will let
thing
you
going on,
respond.
but here's what I'm going to say.
What are you thirsty
Jan-
for? Some kind of relevance out here?
No, actually, Scott.
I
I'm
mean,
quite,
I don't know what you do for a living.
All right.
Really? I like a lot of Democrats.
Let
Scott,
me-
but
let me
let me finish my thought here, please. Can I just finish what I was about to say, which is that on January 6th, he could have deployed the National Guard. He chose not to.
But when I say I don't think about politics when I think of the Kennedy Center honors, it's because usually when the honorees are announced, you don't see the president doing a press conference at the Kennedy Center. He's not on the stage hosting the thing. He's sitting in a box and he's waving and laughing and clapping. And George Bush did it. Donald Trump did not do it. Barack Obama did it. Joe Biden did it. Presidents have done it and it has come and gone, and people don't think of this as a political thing. They think of this as a celebration of American art.
There are people in there that can't stand him and reject his endorsement. It's not partisan at all, actually. I mean, you said yourself, you've got country singers and Gloria Gaynor, who's associated with the gay community. I mean, there's absolutely...
We don't know what Gloria Gaynor's politics are. Just to
Okay,
be
but
super
the
clear, I
Rolling
don't
Stones
know
hate him.
anything
Elton
about
John
it.
hates him. They've come
Yeah.
out and said, we hate him. We reject his endorsement. Have you looked at some of the things that are being reviewed?
Slavery was a bad thing that we should talk about.
Okay.
Like, he forgives
He's
me for
not
saying that.
whitewashing slavery. So
he's not?
He's not. No,
Okay.
he's not. And you cannot tie imperialism and racism and slavery to just one race, which is pretty much what every single exhibit does. But let's talk about the fact that when you
In the
look
United
at
States.
let's talk about the fact.
I mean, slavery in America was.
Do you realize that
white
only
supremacy.
less than 2% of white Americans own slaves?
But it was a system of white
Do
supremacy.
you realize that
African
slavery
Americans
is
were
thousands
slaves
of
and
years old?
White people were
Do you know
the slave
who
owners.
In
was
American-
the first race to
I didn't
try
realize
to
this was
end
controversial.
slavery?
Wait a second.
Okay,
Well, what's
I'm sorry, Jillian,
controversial?
I'm very
is-
surprised
This is
that
an
you're trying to
extraordinary
litigate.
exercise in historical revisionism.
I'm really
Historical
surprised.
revisionism. Do you realize that
Jillian, I'm surprised that you're trying to litigate who was the beneficiary of slavery and
I'm
who
not.
was not.
What I'm trying to tell you
in
is
the
that
context of American history,
okay.
in the context of American history, what are you saying is incorrect by
What I'm
saying
saying
that
is you
it was white
cannot-
people oppressing black
every
people?
single thing is like, oh no, this is all because white people bad. And that's just not the truth. Like, for example, every single exhibit, I have a list of every single one. Like, people migrated from Cuba because white people bad. Not because of past. Yes, no, it's in there. That's what I'm saying. You don't actually know what's in there. Do you know that when you walk in the front door,
what exactly,
the first thing you see is the gay flag?
Can someone even explain why Jillian Michaels, yes, the lady from The Biggest Loser, who's best known for yelling at fat people to run?
All right, y'all. What Jillian is saying is white people should not take the full blame for slavery. And you remember Donald Trump went into the Black Smithsonian and removed a lot of exhibits and watered down the history. And she's saying white people should not take the full blame for slavery. Yes, you should. Okay. Who purchased the slaves? Who had the most plantations across the South? Right? No, you don't get to now try to, say, oh, we didn't have the full participation in it. Yes, y'all did. Yes, y'all did. Not only did you fully participate in it, and when they give you these low ball, only 1% had slave and 2%, those are false. Probably the more accurate is more like 51%. All right. They always lowball the numbers. And what they're telling you, 2%, that's a damn lie. And I know this firsthand because when I did my family tree, I had to go through the census. And there were a ton. Listen to me now. You don't believe me? Y'all go and look at the census that were out around those times. When you go through page after page after page, it's nothing but white people with a bunch of slaves. I saw it firsthand when I was doing my family tree. So these people ain't going to get in my face talking about only 1%, only 2%. That's a damn lie. I can't tell you the endless pages I saw of white slave owners and a list of their slaves in the census. Now, the census back then, I can tell you this, and you can follow it up by going back to the census back during those times. Some slave owners listed the actual names of their slaves in the census. So you'll see the slave owner, and then you'll see all of their slaves. You'll know what plantation they were on, and so on and so forth. Some slave owners did not list the names, but they listed their slaves by number. All right. So either it was listed by name or listed by number. And see, when it's listed by number, it becomes a little more difficult to trace your people because you don't have an actual name. So you got to kind of do gymnastics to figure out, okay, where were my people and what are some of the names of my family members that were slaves? Now, for me, it was a little easier for me because I had names. Our elders, you should listen to your elders because your elders are going to tell you the names of the people that were around when you weren't around on this earth. And being that I remembered what my grandparents would talk about and the people they were talk about, I could kind of piece it together based on the oral history that I got in my family. So Jillian ain't gonna bring her ass up here talking about white people bad. You're taking the full blame. When you go through the census, it is loaded with white people with slaves, y'all. And I am not exaggerating. I challenge each and every one of you to go back to those old census records that were out, and you will see exactly what I see. And I think the reason why They say these things because they think the average person is not going to check. And you're right, the average person isn't. But those of us that put family trees together, and you had to go to the census to find some of your family members like I did, you saw those pages and pages and pages and pages of white slave owners and and it was overwhelmingly a lot of people down there in the South. Now, what would have been the purpose of having, I want y'all to also think about this. What would be the purpose in having a civil war if only 1% of the people in the South had slaves? It wouldn't have been worth having no war over that. No, they had a war because there were a lot of white people, slave owners in the South. If they lost their slaves, they had a lot to lose. That's why they went to war, because it was too many white people in the South that had a lot to lose. There is no way they had that big ass war and it was only 1% that had slaves. That wouldn't have made sense to even have the Civil War. I want y'all to think about that. It would never have made sense to have a civil war if only 1% had slaves. It wouldn't have made no sense whatsoever. They had that war because a lot of them had shit on the line. They had money they were going to lose, revenue, they were going to lose their homes, they were going to lose everything if slavery ended. And they did. They lost everything. And on top of losing everything, they went through a damn famine down there in the South. They went through a famine. A lot of people died. So you're not going to get in my face and tell me 1% had slaves and y'all had a civil war over some damn 1%. Make that make some damn sense, because it don't. A lot of y'all had slaves. So Jillian wants the heat taken off of white people. This is what she's really literally saying. She wants the heat taken off of white people over slavery. That's what she's really saying. And there's no way to take the heat off of them because it's too much history connecting them as slave owners, connecting them with slaves. Not only down in the South, but up here in the North. Come on. I mean, I think they feel that the majority of us don't know what went on, and the majority of us do. You know? And the only thing I'm upset about Abby Phillips, they didn't give her ass enough hard pushback at the table. Now, that one white woman that was talking to her, I don't expect white people to push hard over slavery, but Abby Phillips as should have really pushed her ass up against the wall over what she was saying. And she was just being too soft-spoken, in my opinion, at that table. She went way too easy on her. And she didn't stand up hard enough against Jillian during that conversation. So that's the biggest hang up I have with Abby Phillips. She needs to get more backbone sitting at that table with those folks. So let's get back to it. So these are people responding to what was said during the time Jillian Michaels was sitting at that table. So you're going to hear just, feedback about it. So let's get into it. I'm sorry, y'all. I didn't mean to babble as long as I did. I just needed to say that this woman is full of shit. She really is.
run faster on a treadmill on CNN of all places talking about politics. I expect this behavior from Fox News. And the thing about it, it's not even, I know Abby Phillips has the whole round table and she has conservatives and she has liberals and progressives and whatever, whatever. Um, was there no one else like Abby Phillips? This is who they really have for your show? They couldn't get, I don't know, an educated Republican and an educated conservative, like someone who actually has some form of like authority backing up what they're saying. This woman is known for yelling at fat people to run faster on a treadmill and making them cry. She's a fitness instructor who literally joined a show that promoted the most unhealthy eating methods. What does she know about museums, slavery, representation? Mind you, she made a whole museum talk about race. She's the one who brought up race and then made a whole comment about how she's upset that a lot of these exhibits make it seem like only one race did slavery. Well, in America, it was predominantly white people. Like, if so many exhibits are saying it, you think everyone's lying? You think you're a historian, you know the truth? Really? Like Abby Phillips, I really need you to like go talk to your producers or whoever's booking the talent for your show and handle it. Cuz it's getting gimmicky. They're making your show like, I don't know, Fox News. Like, what is this?
Jillian Michaels is fried. Fried. Girl, what are you even talking about, girl? What are you talking about? All you know how to do is lose weight really, really quickly and exercise and fitness. Stick to what you know. All them low carbs and all stuff that you do, they got your brain cells shrinking. Just like the fat cells are shrinking, your brain cells are shrinking. You're spitting nonsense and all these unfactual statements and truths that don't exist. Girl, when we're talking about slavery, we're talking about the transatlantic slave trade, which is particularly unique to America. We're not talking about indentured servants from the BC era, girl. Okay? Stick to weightlifting, stick to fitness, stick to Biggest Loser, and stay out of politics. Girl, just shut up.
Jillian Michaels on Abby Phillips is a perfect example of why people who do not have the same acumen, education, and understanding of history should not be in the same rooms having conversation. Social media has made us have conversation with people we would never interact with because they don't have the intellectual dexterity, heft, or height to have the conversation. Jillian Michaels is a fitness person who is bitter because Ozempic has taken her job. So she is out here as a political pundit for Donald Trump. And last night she sat up there and tried to make sure that we understood that racism was not a white supremacist institution in the United States. And she started the argument and then went to say that she was being racialized and played the victim. It's the victim and the villain at the same time. You understand me that these people are idiots and what they're doing is entertainment, but the entertainment is propaganda that is harmful, that will get everybody confused on purpose because the educational systems are being hijacked by privatization like everything else in the United States. Because if we privatize it, then we can concierge what is being taught and we can make sure that young white people do not understand the history of their ancestors to continue to keep those systems of harm intersecting and interlocked to continue to harm people and keep their little bit of power because it's 10 millionaires over 34 billion people. Yeah, Jillian Michaels owes Abby Phillips an apology, first and foremost. She should be kicked off of the show because she just doesn't have the acumen, understanding, experience, or intelligence to really have a salient conversation. And she can take Scott Jennings' smug, I never say anything wrong about the Donald Trump that is currently president because I want to position's ass with her.
Good morning. This message is for Jillian Michaels and her fillers. First, I have a book read. It is Superior, The Return of Race Science by Angela Saini. Second, Jillian, I just want to let you know I am someone who has taught American history and American government through the Black American experience. I have done tons of research. I have gone to school for African American studies. I just want you to know this is not something that I'm just stuffing in my face like your fillers. I'm going to read an excerpt from a racial scientist. You know, the people that made up the idea that science justifies racism in the United States. So let's get into it. Louis Agassiz, a Swiss naturalist who had been mentored by George Cuvier and moved to the United States in 1846, argued passionately against blacks being treated the same as whites. Shaken by such an intense physical disgust toward black domestic workers serving him food at a hotel that he almost couldn't eat there at all, he became convinced that separate races originated in different places and possessed different characteristics and intellectual abilities. Another racial scientist. Propelled by the belief that Black people had their own unique diseases, Samuel Cartwright, a medical doctor practicing in Louisiana and Mississippi in 1851, characterized what he saw as a mental condition particular to Black slaves, which he coined drapetomania, or the disease causing Negroes to run away. Harvard historian Evelyn Hammond says it makes sense to him because if the natural state of the Negro is to be a slave, then running away is going against the natural state, and therefore it's a disease. The color of the skin is the main difference. The membranes, the muscles, the tendons, all fluids and secretions, then the nerves and the bile. There's a difference in flesh. The bones are whiter and harder. The neck is shorter and more oblique. Cartwright's medical discoveries were patently rooted in the desire to keep slaves enslaved to maintain the status quo in the American South, where he lived. In place of universal humanity came a self-serving version of the human story in which racial difference became an excuse for treating people differently. These are two white men who decided that they were going to come up with racial science that disenfranchises Black people. So when you decide to say things like, throughout history, all you see is racism and white people bad, and then you try to justify and say, well, it was white people trying to try to dismantle slavery. Sweetie, who started it? Open a book and get the fillers out of your face because it's rotting your brain cells. Your racism is showing. That man in the White House is trying to whitewash American history. Slavery in America was very different from slavery across the entire globe because it disenfranchised people based on the color of their skin. You would know that if you read a book.
I can't believe that I ever thought Dr. Phil was the shit. And I certainly cannot believe I ever thought Jillian Michaels was worth listening to. I'm repulsed.
Have you looked at some of the things that are being reviewed?
Slavery was a bad thing that was to talk about.
Okay,
Like
he's not whitewashing slavery. So
he's not?
He's not. No.
Okay.
He's not. And you cannot tie imperialism and racism and slavery to just one race, which is pretty much what every single exhibit does. But let's talk about the fact that when you look at slavery, let's talk about the fact that
slavery in America was.
do you realize that only less than 2% of white Americans owned slaves?
But it was a system of white supremacy.
You realize that slavery is thousands of years old?
White people
Do you know who was the first race to try to end slavery? Well, what's controversial?
I'm very surprised.
This is an
that you're trying to
extraordinary exercise in historical revisionism.
I'm really
Historical
surprised.
revisionism. Do you realize that?
Jillian, I'm surprised that you're trying to litigate who was the beneficiary of slavery and
I'm
who
not.
was not.
What I'm trying to tell you
in
is
the
that
context of American history.
okay.
In the context of American history, what are you saying is incorrect by
What
saying that it was white people oppressing Black people?
Every single thing is like, oh no, this is all because white people bad, and that's just not the truth. Like for example, every single exhibit, I have a list of every single one. Like people migrated from Cuba because white people bad, not because of caste. Yes, no, it's in there. That's what I'm saying. You don't actually know what's in there. Do you know that when you walk in the front door, the first thing you see is the gay flag?
Hey now, TikTok family. Here's a question for y'all about journalism. I personally feel like journalism lacks a level of credibility that we need. If you're going to be on air and you're going to be putting voices out there and perspectives out there, the people need to have a basis. There needs to be a reason that this person has a microphone. And I feel like all too often now when I'm seeing some of the headlines, there's no basis. What is that person there for? So Jillian Michaels recently went on CNN to talk about her perspective on slavery, enslavement. And when I looked her up, I was like, well, how the fuck does she get a microphone? because she is a fitness trainer. She is some person who's been on TV for some TV show that has nothing to do with research around enslavement. And I really feel like if you're gonna have the two sides thing that the journalism claims is so important, have something with some meaning beyond the other side. Give me somebody who did some research that actually validates something that, tell me something I didn't know. But if you're gonna just put people up there because they have a platform, I do not understand, and I do not think you can call that journalism. I think you could call that clickbaiting, getting people to listen to your perspective. It's dangerous and problematic when you put people up there who have no real valid perspective. Um, I think journalists and journalism, the field, has to be really cautious now because we're entering a time where there's things called alternative facts um, and things that we just never conceived that you could even have that possibility. But when you talk about something that was 400 years of torture, 400 years of 400 years plus of dehumanization. And you have people like Jillian Michaels coming on to make it palatable. And somebody put her on there and gave her a microphone. I think we got to stop that. I think producers have to make a decision not to do that. And if they continue to do the foolishness, like we need to have more and more voices like Joanne Reed's, like Roland Martin's. We need to have more and more voices out there countering it because, come on now, enslavement is not debatable. It's not up for debate. The torture and atrocities and violence and dehumanization that happened for 400 plus years across the Americas, Latin America, the Caribbean, right? It's not up for debate. And there needs to be a responsibility about it, period.
Jillian Michaels said that he's not trying to whitewash history. Now, I don't know where that lady has been because let's be honest. Last time I seen her, she was yelling at me on the yoga mat, and I was good. The fact that she has now become like a correspondent or some speaker of something or another is wild work to me because girl, it's so funny how they love to cherry pick parts of slavery, the historical context of it, and then try to utilize worldwide, global shit, and then tie it to US stats, and then think that, if they do it like that, it doesn't seem so bad as to what happened in America. Now, of course, she was like, you can't tie slavery and imperialism to one race. We're talking about US history, sweetie. We're not talking about all this other stuff or whatever. Yes, we all, and they love to say, well, other races, we don't give a shit about them other races that happen over here. We talking about the motherfucking shit that happened right here because here's the thing. Was the other shit around the world bad? Absolutely. But we need to focus on the shit that happened here because y'all focusing on this other shit. Y'all can't multitask. Y'all can't be multifaceted in that way. We need to focus on this shit right here. So don't tell us about, who was over here selling, doing, we don't care about the historical. We worry about the black people here. And that's where, they got everything fucked up and they get on these little panels or whatever and then try to argue us down because she then said that, and here's the thing, anytime you argue with somebody like that and they were like, oh, you realize, oh, baby, we already realized, you realize you done fucked up, right? Okay. Because she was like, you realize that only 2% of white people own slaves. Girl, y'all were the majority. What's 2% of the majority? That's a lot of motherfucking people. You realize white people got reparations. Then, of course, she talks about all the things in the museum, and she was like, it just doesn't make any sense. You walk in, they have all these things and talk about, she was like, Cubans left Cuba, white people bad. She was like, that's not the truth. Girl, we're talking about U.S. history. And U.S. history, the things that you are trying to take down that happen on U.S. soil, that continue to happen on U.S. soil, the things that people don't understand about, like the MOVE situation, U.S. soil. Let's talk about it. why, Black people don't have their own neighborhoods and things like that. Because when they did have things like Black Wall Street, what happened? It certainly wasn't the other people that came in there and burnt that shit down to the ground. Now, was it? Okay. Then she goes on to say, slavery was thousands of years old. And, again, we're talking about U.S. history. Like, God damn it. Do you remember when our very own Black Mermaid, Hallie, was sitting in the movie theater with her grandfather, who broke down into tears because he was talking about how he picked cotton at 5. Now, if you caught some of my previous videos, we were talking about little children in kindergarten and all the things. Her grandfather, who, was with her right there in the movie theater to watch her be on the big screen as Little Mermaid, picked cotton at 5. Who made him pick the cotton? Because I guarantee you he just wasn't out there picking it for fun. But you want to talk about slavery was thousands of years old. Let's talk about in this fucking country right here. This is why, if y'all don't go get that little pointed nose heifer off these panels, because the mere fact that I also found out that she has adopted a Haitian child, what in the world? And then she was like, well, do you realize who tried to end slavery? But do you realize who tried to keep it going? Do you realize who didn't tell them the people that they was free and they was still out there working? Mm-hmm. Do you realize? Stop sending y'all's I need to pivot white women to talk about things that occurred in Black history if they're not willing to tell the fucking truth. And then the fact of the matter is, I'm waiting for her to say that she has a Black child. So she has a right to talk about these things, not if you're going to whitewash it as white as your damn skin. America's not a real place. And I swear to God, y'all are trying so hard to make us accept the fact that it was DNA, them no good ancestors. Own the shit, heal from it, learn from it, and stop trying to fucking profit from it. Jesus. The Black one, not that Brad Pitt Jesus one, though. Okay? All right. Y'all go be good.
Like and subscribe to Mom's channel.
Less than 2% of white Americans owned slaves.
But it was a system of white supremacy.
You know
So, Jillian Michaels went full racist on CNN. Maybe she dropped a weight on her head. I can't believe I used to think she was pretty, but once you know that someone is racist, they're not pretty anymore. But this 2% of white people own slaves bullshit line is going around. Let's talk about it. That stat conveniently conflates all men, including those who were not legally able to own slaves, and women and children in America, all white living people in America. That's ridiculous. When you talk about adult white men in the South, we're looking at 25 to 30% ownership of slaves. But the point of the 2% stat talking point is to say it wasn't that big a deal, or not that many white people were involved. It wasn't just slave owners who benefited in and participated in slavery. Their families also benefited, but there were also banks, textile mills, shipping companies, insurance firms, auctioneers, slave catchers, plus everyone who benefited from the American economy at that time benefited from slavery. Slavery is the reason why the American economy became the world leader. At that time, cotton was a massively important global product, and we were able to fabricate, and sell cotton faster and cheaper than anyone else because we had people doing it for free. Plus, we had created wealth out of nowhere from taking bodies and putting them into this institution. People benefited from the sale of people. That created wealth that benefited lots of people who did not even participate in slavery. Plus, they said, hey, working class people, working class whites who cannot even own slaves, you are by law required to participate in slavery, and that if you see a slave escaping, you must participate in bringing them back. To say nothing of the way that the entire South went to war to protect slavery. The attempt to dismiss white complicity with slavery with this 2% bullshit is disgusting and dishonest, and it really does not belong on CNN at all.
things that
Yeah,
were being reviewed.
slavery was a bad thing that was to talk about.
Okay,
Like he forgave
he's
me for
not
saying that.
whitewashed.
I'm going to hold some of y'all's hands with a napkin in between when I say this. Slavery was incredibly bad. Like, and not just like slavery was like, I won't even use slavery. Let's talk about indigenous history for a second, right? Because of imperialism and colonialism, we lost millions of indigenous folks within Turtle Island. Within Turtle Island, we have languages that are extinct. We have people who who've been here for thousands and thousands of years before the Europeans came, and because of disease and guns, germs, and steel, and all that stuff, they're gone. And I find it so annoying and disingenuous when people make these arguments, when we say, here are all these atrocious things that happen, here are all these atrocious things that happen to a certain set of people, insert anyone, and then someone will say, that wasn't as big of a deal. Absolutely, it was a big deal. And how dare you sit here and diminish what a person is going through? And that can be, hey, insert what happened at the Holocaust, and not just with Jewish people, with people who were of Romani descent. And that's the Romani people. And those folks, it is absolutely crazy. So many things can be true at once. Slavery was a huge deal. Slavery in this entire world is a huge deal. Our entire world is still dealing with the ramifications and the punishments that came from enslavement of people. Yes, slavery might exist in some countries, but no. We are still dealing with it because because people like Jillian Michaels refuses to face the music and just have the conversation about slavery and the enslavement of people and how horrible it was. The fear that people have of history is going to be the reason why a lot of folks this country will go down in flames, because nobody wants to sit here and just admit, hey, this happened, it was wrong, let's find a way to fix it and keep it moving. But because CNN puts someone like Jillian Michaels on that platform for everybody to see, we are now going to be hearing folks and it's not just Jillian Michaels. Remember, this is something that has been happening ever since I was a kid. Oh, I don't understand why it's a victim mentality. I never ever thought of my ancestors who were brought here, who were abducted from West Africa, came and were brought here under duress, who survived all the diseases, all the stuff, everything known to man, and still made it. I've never thought of them as victims. I have always thought of them as absolutely surviving humans. I never thought of my Muskogee Creek ancestors as anything else but a victim. Because how can you go through all of that mess and still make it so that I'm here, so that my nephews are here, so that so many other people are here? And that's a lot of people. I taught history. I never taught it like that. It is how you teach it. The problem is that a lot of us were taught by football coaches and basketball coaches who literally just made it just into this, well, it wasn't as simple as it thinks, and we need to stop doing that. But we're not going to do that anyways, because we're clearly in the the upside down, dealing with this stuff, while you have people like Jillian Michaels, who has no business not an expert. Ma'am, I don't even want your fat phobic behind telling me how to get back in shape or how to eat or how to do anything, because I wouldn't even want her doing that with the hairstyle that she has on. So why on God's green earth would I even take a grain of salt about her opinion on stuff? That's her opinion. That's not fact. And I don't even care what she has to say. She could come and have she can go. I wouldn't talk to her because I'd rather talk to a brick wall than talk to her. As the late Congressman Barney Frank said, I would rather talk to furniture than talk to her. And CNN is irresponsible for putting someone like her or anyone else on that. You need to put experts back on. If you're not putting experts back on, why are you talking?
Let's get into the mess of the mess, y'all. So we got Miss Jillian Michaels. So she was part of this panel on CNN, baby, and they were talking about the Smithsonian, and she felt like it wasn't fitting because it's always something against the white folks. And then she brought up slavery, where she said 2%, less than 2% of the white folks owned slaves. I said American white folks owned slaves. I said that's a lie. Because I said slavery wouldn't have went on for 400 years. And then there wouldn't have been a civil war between the North and the South. And we know the North and the South, everybody in there, all the white folks owned slaves. And if Abraham didn't pass the law to free black folks, we would still be slaves today, some way, some form. But tell me how y'all feel about this. Like, share, subscribe, and join the channel. Tell me how y'all feel in the comments. Bye, y'all.
So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, the white supremacists over on TikTok agreed with her. And I said, that is the reason why they always have an opinion with no fact behind it. Or they got white supremacist fact. I don't go by that. Okay. I don't get no facts from 4chan and then come in my face with it. So anyway, y'all, CNN, this is their fault. I don't know who is in charge of choosing the panel, but that person should be fired. For real. They should be fired for putting somebody like Jillian Michaels on there because she is no expert in anything, especially pertaining to history. The only thing I saw her do on the panel is try to convince us that white people wasn't the only one fully at fault for slavery. Yes, you are, because it was the people like you that were running the country and running the government. It wasn't all different types of people pushing laws in this country. It was white people. Okay. And it's almost like you want to now run from the crime scene. There's no running from it. There's no running from it. Now I see why the Most High say, y'all get double. Because number one, you either show no remorse for it, and I've seen many white people not show any remorse over slavery, or you just sit around and tell bold-faced lies about what happened, just like Jillian. And because of that, I fully understand why he say y'all get 1,000 years. I get it. I get it. And we know you're never, because that the young lady before the last man, they're never going to resolve it. The only way to resolve it is reparations. And you see how they're acting over reparations. And since there's no remorse and you're trying to whitewash it and lie about it and not trying to make amends by giving reparations, those 1,000 years are well deserved. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. So, y'all, that's all I have for you on this subject matter. But we will be coming back again. I hope you can come back again because I'm going to be doing another live stream a little later on at 3:45. And we're going to talk about the truth is kind of coming out about why Donald Trump went into DC, y'all. People are piecing it together, and it's not what Donald Trump is trying to tell us. It's almost like he's trying to put up a smokescreen about what's going on, but many of us now got the picture on why this whole thing is happening. And we'll get heavily into that at 3:45 today. So I hope you can all be there. If not, then hopefully you can watch the replay. So everybody, thank you so much for being here. And once again, I thank Iron Will for your super chat and T-Key for your super sticker. I deeply appreciate your support for my channel. Shalom, family.